The importance of high-quality early childhood education has never been clearer. But the gap between what we know about best practice, what we know about neuroscience, what we know about brain development, and what's happening every single day in early childhood programs across our country is growing. We continue to learn more and more and more about the importance of our work, and our practices are changing very little. It's time for all of us to think of new ways that we can impact the lives of children and families. I want to share with you a deeply personal story of a little girl who grew up in my mother's family child care home. I learned the most about this field, not in my education, not in 25 years of work, but in growing up in a family child care home where children were loved, nurtured, and respected. A year ago, I was invited to a wedding of a little girl who was raised in our family child care home. And during the Mass at the Prayers of the Faithful, she said this: to pray for Dottie and Paul MacDonald, who formed the foundation of my life. I literally felt myself slipping from the pew, not because I didn't know the impact that my parents had on her and her life, but because of all of you. Are we showing up every single day knowing that we are forming the foundation of children's lives? We can no longer just go through the motions. We have to understand, the research is telling us, the lifelong impact that early education has. Not just getting children ready for school, but on their lifespan, on their success as family members, on their success in communities. We have to be willing to change practices that have been in place for far too long. Change is necessary to address the tolerance for mediocrity that has been established in this field. Change is essential to close this gap that is widening. We need to bring change so that the gap gets narrower and narrower. The mindset that has kept us from changing is something we've all experienced and something we all might identify with. Anyone here familiar with the TTWWADI mindset? That's the way we've always done it? I drive by. Yeah. Well, this is hurting our field. We are seeing things in practice in our programs that have been in place 40 years, 50 years. People doing the same things, even though what we've learned in the past 10 years has changed tremendously. We need to step away from the "that's we've always done it" into new practices that can transform our work and transform our practices. The brain research is growing all the time. We can literally see how children's brains are being built, what synapses are forming. The research happening right now at the Center for the Developing Child at Harvard University is something every educator needs to be following, watching, looking at their video blogs, looking at their research to inform the practice that we're all using in our classrooms. We only have 2,000 days from the day the newborn baby is born until that child shows up in kindergarten. What are we doing every single day to impact their brains, to form relationships, to build connections that are going to shape their lives forever? So what I want to talk to you today is some key things that we all can be doing, simple steps that we can take in our classrooms, in our school communities, in our relationships to impact this change. First one is we need to reduce toxic stress. Negative energy that is in our schools is affecting children's learning. When you're in classrooms where teachers are clearly not connecting, where they're not connecting with each other, where they're not connecting with children, toxic stress is building. Where gossip, where judgment, where negativity live, we are impacting the ability for children to grow. What we found through the research on toxic stress is children's brains are literally shutting down in high-stress situations. We need children to be in vibrant, energized environments. My simple formula for this is also related to my favorite food. It's called pie. Passion, intentionality, engagement. If we can just bring this to life If every one of us can show up full of passion, intentional in our actions and our interactions, and focused on our own levels of engagement, we are going to see positive transformation. The research on engagement right now is shocking. The Gallup poll data, which uses a large early childhood component to get their data, shows us that only a third of employees are engaged at work, 1/3. 50.3% disengaged, 16.8% actively disengaged. What's that saying to us in our field? Over 66% of teachers are in some state of disengagement in their work with children. This cannot be acceptable. We need people to be fired up, to be passionate. This needs to be a vital part of our own code of ethics in our work. We need to create an upward spiral. We need to mobilize creative potential to turn to positive energy in a way that sets in motion ripples of confidence, energy, enthusiasm, and engagement in all aspects of our work. When we can do that, we can start to make a difference for every child, for every educator, because we're going to feel that positive energy as much as the children and the families. I am a huge fan and dedicated a lot of my professional work to the Reggio Emilia schools. How many of you are familiar with the schools in Reggio Emilia, Italy? They're viewed as the finest preschools in the world. And Carlina Rinaldi, who's the head of Reggio Children, has written a really profound book, and I've marked up every page of this book. But this one quote, I think, shapes so much of what we need to be thinking about today in this work. We should remember that there is no creativity in the child if there's no creativity in the adult. The creative and competent child exists if there is a creative and competent adult. When we let our creativity die, when we show up with low engagement, when we are not sharing our passions, we are robbing children of their own learning, of their own growth. So we need to be intentional. We need to act purposefully. We need to have a clear vision and goals for our work with this group of children, with our colleagues, with their families. Get that energy rolling forward. When we can do that, we're going to have clarity of daily purpose. We're going to have a renewed passion for our work, and we're going to have stronger relationships with every protagonist that we're in contact with. So it's up to us to think about this work and create a positive culture for the children in our classrooms, because it is the messages in our culture that teach. No matter what beautiful materials, no matter what resources you have in that classroom, if the environment is full of vibrance and love and learning, children are going to learn and build meaningful relationships.